To this end, academic training commonly involves the violent inversion of how the nature of knowledge is understood, i.e. using a Western lens to interrogate the indigenous as opposed to an unfettered study of the world through the indigenous lens. Thus, what endures is the persistent and unapologetic need to make meaning of our existence on our own terms. A critical dimension of investigating phenomena, particularly within post-secondary contexts, is cultivating the research capacity to develop methodologies that harmonize with much older knowledge systems that have been genealogically passed on through eons of times. In practice, indigenous research methodologies give greater salience to pre-modern sensitivities, i.e. praying, singing, dancing, beading, weaving, and other cultural-centered faculties that has been layered over with the natured practices and approaches. Every research methodology has an umbilical origin. What cannot be overlooked is the indigenous research methodologies includes an ancestry that is embodied within the researcher. In this sense, indigenous research methodologies have an propensity to become a site where local and familial knowledge are experienced as a way to receive ourselves in relations to the world. That said, we must acquire the means to harvest a material collection of indigenous and non-indigenous cultural offerings that work in cooperation to promote a structure of accord, one that does not estrange us from our live cultural experiences. To form the foundation of this approach, we need to critically assess the extent that a methodology can displace questions of relationality. These questions include, but are not limited to, where do you originate your thinking process? It is one of the foster a process of effacement of indigenous culture, of nurtures an ancestral consciousness. When your methodology interfaces with your identity, does it obstruct how your indigenous function in the world? As indigenous scholars participating in the constructions of knowing, many of us have come to embrace the idea that Lo'oloma put forth generations ago to remain phenomenally and solidly conscious within new social contexts by nurturing an ever-evolving understanding of who we are. And so, to begin this cycle anew, this book serves as a location of recovery as it endeavors to fill a pedagogical absence within academia. In conclusion, in this chapter, we shared some of our challenges as indigenous scholars as we navigate the field of higher education with integrity. For us, the process of indigenizing our research, our reclaiming of these spaces, methodologies, and conceptual frameworks is the only way we can do our research. To do otherwise would be to participate in the colonial project. We share the lack of understanding and lack of support we experience in indigenous scholars. Reclaiming our indigeneity in our work is an additional task many non-native and dominant scholars do not have to undertake. This extra task, this task, this tax, if you will, can be exhausting. The non-native academy of settler colonial origin does not readily make space for non-settler colonial thought or anti-colonial thought. Patel 2016. Not all of us has indigenous faculty to validate our thinking. Giving back mentoring those who follow is one way we embody this work, humanize the academy, and express our indigeneity. Indigenous scholars do not ignore or dismiss Western epistemologies. As is shared in this book, indigenous scholars interpret Western methodologies and epistemologies through our own lenses. Non-indigenous scholars do the same. However, being of the same settlers' colonial origin as institutions of higher education, they are not always aware or encouraged to make visible the lens, reclaiming our relationship with creation, our relationality, Wilson 2008, is a key difference in approach. We are making progress, however, as noted in recent publications, including this important book, through the increased numbers of indigenous scholars and through the international discussion of indigenous knowledge systems and frameworks on our own terms. Our stories emphasize the need for indigenous research. The following chapter are examples of how we reclaim our indigeneity in research.